What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Fire Friday. And the reason I'm so excited about this Fire Friday is not only because it's Nikki Klein, but she's actually a repeat on Fire Friday. Nikki, I don't know if you remember, but when I first started Fire Friday at the beginning of the pandemic, you were one of the first people that I called. I think you were like episode number 4 or 5.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and here we are 2 years later. 2 years later, still going strong, consistent. It's turned into something that we're so proud of. And, I think what I love the most about Fire Friday is that at first it came out of this need of, we're in the pandemic. We don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I don't know if you had a manual for the pandemic, but I didn't. I didn't have the playbook sitting next to me when it happened. And all I knew was to just give back. That's all I could do during the pandemic was what could I do? And I was like, let me bring my friends of the industry together. And, we started off doing it via Zoom with my team. And then I said, no, let's share this with the world that we have, our world, right? And it just turned into something really special. And then as it's evolved, it turned into something deeper than real estate. It was inspiring stories. It's been hearing people's journey. And you actually helped me during that time, that I escaped to the beach and I got a condo and I was having a little meltdown and my dogs are barking. I know you might have your cats pop on, but, I think of Fire Friday and the people who made it special or helped launch it. And you're one of those people. So
thank you. Well, I think we helped each other.
Oh, thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know Nikki Klein is an amazing friend, an amazing agent, luxury agent out in Boca. She's a master Facebook guru, has built pages, and it's just by the masses, thousands of agents, and has crossed many, many major stages. When she was at Keller Williams, we're fortunate enough to now have her at EXP. But today we're not going to talk about brands. Today we're going to talk about what matters most. Your brand, your internal brand, your heart. And Nikki and I talk a lot about, really being in alignment with your soul, really, just being honest with yourself. And in order to grow your business, newsflash, you have to grow yourself. And what does that really mean, Nikki? Like so many people talk about it, but such bullshit. They don't know how to do it. It's not about just going to the gym. It's not just about things like, take us there. Let's just dive into this because you walk the walk and you are so honest and transparent about it and not afraid to speak up.
Right. I mean, I think I used to have that feeling too of what does that mean? Grow yourself. What am I what do I go and make more money? What? I don't even understand what that means. And then it kind of hit me one day. And I was like, oh, grow yourself. So what does that mean? Well, for me, it was recognizing that there was more to life than what we were currently living. This might go a little bit deep. It'll either go over the heads of some people or it's going to stir some feelings in other people. But it's really a matter of looking at yourself. And for me, it was what is this life? What are we doing here? What's the point? I just had all of these thoughts in my mind churning. There's got to be more to life than how we're living right now. So I started
in business. I think you were also very clearly this whole overachievement just to beat people and to compete was also something like that.
Well, there has to be, right? I had an addiction to achievement, right? I had to win the award. So what does that stem from? And the more research that I did, the more reading I did, I recognized that, sometimes when we're children, there are things and triggers that happen and those don't go away. They turn into patterns. Something can happen in your childhood and it turns into a pattern up until adulthood. So for example, if you got an A grade, let's say your parents never kind of paid much attention to you and you got an A grade when you were younger and they were like, oh my God, you did such a great job. Well, that can ultimately turn into an achievement addiction as an adult, right? Where you have to win the award because then you feel seen by other people. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it was digging into all of that and recognizing that a lot of what happens in your childhood ultimately becomes who you are as an adult unless you do the work. You know how people say, are you doing the work, right? So doing the work it is not easy. It's not all like roses and everything glorious.
You guys have to pardon my dogs in the background. They are having a feast back here. I'm going to hopefully shut them up in a second, but I definitely want to touch base on that really, really quick. Fendi, everybody meet Fendi. Stop. Working from home, right? My father was a drill sergeant, and I love my father. And he obviously worked with what he had, what he knew, how he was
absolutely
right? But a lot of people ask me why what drives me, what fuels me. And I had to do some deep digging as to understanding how I'm wired, why I'm wired the way I am. My father used to come home and tell me that I was, that he would use me as an example to the privates he would, have in his boot camp, and that I was strong and that I could beat, I could do more than the average and that I had to strive for excellence, right? My father wired me, and he didn't mean to do this. He
of
didn't
course
work with what he knew. But the fact that I had a drill sergeant father, the fact that my father used to make me think like, yeah, you can do more push-ups than, so-and-so's kid, and you can do more than this. And like, he was programming me without even realizing it to be an overachiever, to compete, to beat people. And I didn't realize that, Nikki, until I started doing some soul work and saying, where did these patterns come from? And it came into with even my brother, like it was like, dad loves me more than you. Like, mom, your mom's, favorite. And it was just this competition. But my father, that was where his stripes lied, in the fact that he came to this country, became a drill sergeant, and he had authority. And the way that a private would work up to E1, E2, E3 was, again, winning and excelling above their competition. And now that I'm aware of that, a lot of times people say, Veronica, what's that inner drive that you have? It's something that was wired, since I was a little girl. So sometimes I don't know how to turn it off. Now I'm a lot more aware because I started doing the work. And actually, I want to say this before you carry on, is I think I mentioned to you, I didn't know how to operate in my feminine because I had been instilled so much masculine.
yeah
So that's why I was always very intimidating to other women too, because I had been surrounded by masculine energy. And I never knew how to tap into a feminine. So when you talk about doing the work, oftentimes doing the work, right, it's going back and discovering who you were, how you were raised. And I am still on that journey, but I have discovered so much about myself and learning to say, I didn't know any better. Neither did my parents, but I can become aware. It doesn't erase my
yeah
trust.
I'm so glad you're using the word awareness, because that's exactly what it is, right? It's having that awareness of a pattern, which helps you to break that pattern, right? If you're just constantly going through life in a cycle and you're like, I keep doing the same thing and keep getting the same results, sometimes you have to step out of that and look in to see, why is it that I keep doing these same things? What is it that happened to me in my past even that created this pattern, so that you can break it and break through and have an awareness of why you're doing certain things. So it's a great word.
So good. So good. And I think I was at dinner last night with Sarita and Via Williams, and we were talking about this because we know each other for, I want to say, at least 7, 8, 9 years, 7, 8 years easily. And we've watched each other's growth and journey, whether it's been health wise, spiritual growth, marriage, salvation of marriages, and just kind of like building our lives by design. And I was telling them about you and how I had escaped to like the condo during the middle of the pandemic. And I'll never forget that conversation we had where you said to me, what would you say to that 14-year-old girl? And how I kind of just started crying and I hugged that 14-year-old girl. And it was a moment of a breakthrough, right? For me, of saying, you didn't know any better. And, we were just talking about that. Like, when did it click for you? Like, what type of, like, okay, so you're aware and you've had the work done and you've had maybe some guidance, some coaching, but someone who's listening today. And you were really, you helped me have that breakthrough because you kind of coached me through it. But like, how can someone who's listening today maybe start walking in that path of saying, okay, go back to that moment, and maybe what books should they read? What type of coaching should they go through? Where did you start and have that
Such
aha?
a good question. I think it's almost like going into kindergarten when you start getting that curiosity and your intuition is like calling at you. So we have like an egoic mind, our egoic mind, which is what we have been programmed to believe growing up. And then we have our soul, which is our true calling. Okay. So we know when something is our intuition, when it's in our soul and we're like, oh my God, I want to learn more about this. I want to do more. Like, how can I learn what's going on? And then you start getting super curious. And I was never a reader. Before I kind of woke up to this lifestyle, I was like, I'm not reading a book. I don't have time for that. Like, who has time for that? And then I just started reading and becoming like obsessed with knowing more and knowing more. And how do I break these patterns? And what does it mean for this? And what does it mean for that? When people ask me that question, I tend to answer that it's really important to use your intuition and go with what resonates with you versus doing what people advise you. Because if you're doing what people advise you, you're not actually doing what you want, you're doing what other people are telling you. And the only person we can really listen to is ourselves. So if you see books, if you see somebody recommending 10 books, follow your intuition with which one resonates with you, right? Because it might not resonate with somebody else. So just to add on to that point,
I think you have to be ready.
You have to be ready.
Your intuition. Jenny, you know my Jenny, right? My best friend, Jenny, she says this thing like, your intuition led you here. Like, we're actually having that put in the office, and like, your intuition and your internal compass will guide you. And I think when I reached out and I started really saying and asking for help, I was just at a breaking point. And I think my intuition led me to the right people to say, I need help. I feel like you're a person I can talk to about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like your internal compass will guide you
Absolutely.
at times. And like, I had met you at a restaurant, at a conference, and I remember we jumped to the other side of the table to say, okay, we need to like become friends.
No, you're being modest. I ran to you and I was like, Veronica, you have the most amazing energy. I need to sit next to you.
Well, and that was our first, moment that we connected. Then we started talking. Then, we would make sure we would visit each other. But like, through our conversations, we kind of had a lot in common. And, we knew that we were, I would say, an energy match. But I remember that time that I called you, it had nothing to do with work. It had nothing to do with how fabulous we were. It was more like, I feel like I can talk to you about this. And it was I feel like it was very therapeutic for me. And I feel like, again, life will put people in your journey, in your path, that are meant to be there. And anyone that is seeking growth, you'll know who you can lean on, right?
You'll feel it and you'll find your people, right? Like you're going to know who you feel comfortable with, who you don't feel comfortable with. If you're in a circle of people right now and it's just weighing you down, like they're constantly complaining or they're talking badly about other people, like those, for me, that's not my people. I want to be surrounded by people who have vision, who are uplifted, who talk positively, who genuinely want to see me succeed, and I genuinely want to see them succeed. If I'm not surrounded by that, then I don't, I'm very careful. I protect my energy. I'm very careful about who I spend my time with. And we all should be. We should all be very protective of our energy and who we're around, because that can be really draining and it can really affect your day to day if you're not in the right circle.
I love that. So let's talk about this, because a lot of times, once you kind of get to a point where you're like upbeat, you're around really positive people, and you're kind of entering a completely different, I would say, level of, I'm going to go there, consciousness, right?
Yep.
It doesn't mean you don't have off days. How do you deal with the fact that sometimes we still go back to days where we're like having a boohoo moment?
Yeah, well, we're still human.
Right,
Like,
right.
listen, we all have the egoic mind. We all have the ego. That's not going anywhere. So the goal for me is to just not hear that egoic voice as much as I listen to my inner being. And I think that the more you do the work, the more you can recognize when it's not actually you who's talking, but the stories from your patterns and your past. Right. So
The people who don't understand the egoic mind, because sometimes they think, oh, you have an ego. We all have an ego,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We all have an ego.
There's a misconception about what the ego is,
Yeah,
right? Like, oh, she's got such a big ego. Well, we all have an ego, but that's not the type of ego that we're referring to in the conscious world, right? In the conscious world, our ego is it's our little child. It's part of our little like wanting to be seen. It's like that little voice inside your head that stems from our past. And so our inner beings, I don't want to say job, but like the journey that I'm on with my inner being is to recognize when that egoic mind is coming in and just like quieting it down, right? Like, meh.
I was on a coaching call yesterday with one of my amazing clients, and we were talking about this same thing. And, she says, well, I'm not respected and people don't like me. And, she was like, I'm not good. I was like, you're letting your ego like tell you these lies, because it's also that voice like, hey, you're not good enough. Why are you
Well, it's
doing this?
like in high school. Did something happen in high school where all these people, like, you know what I mean? Because we are the poison in our minds. Nobody else is saying these things. We're creating those stories in our head,
Yep.
right? She might talk to somebody who she thinks hates her. Like we all have those clients, right? Who we're like, oh my God, they're never going to call me again. They freaking hated me. And then you get a phone call 2 months later, like, hey, I have a friend who wants to sell a house.
Yep.
The same idea, right? Where we create these stories in our minds and they go and they go and they go. It's like, if you have a negative thought in your mind, it takes 17 seconds for that negative thought to spiral into many, many more negative thoughts. So the goal is to get rid of the negativity, and not by thinking, well, I got to think positive, but by turning and shifting your focus on doing something more positive. So when you start having negative thoughts, go for a walk, meditate, do things that bring you joy. I go into thrift stores when I'm like feeling stressed out. Like I'll go look for books, look for stuff. That's my therapy.
I love
Is
that.
like just walking around and window shopping or like finding a good deal. I always shift what my vibration is. So I believe that we live in different vibrations, right? You can have a high vibration, you can have a lower vibration. If I'm feeling in a low vibration, negative, like harsh energy, which we all do, because again, we're human, I try and get out of that by not trying to think the opposite. Well, I'm having a hard day, so I'm going to have a good day. No, I'm going to completely shift everything that I'm doing so that my whole being changes, right? Go work out, go for a walk, sit at the lake, go to the beach if you have a beach. So it's those types of things.
And people will say, like, people have said to me, Veronica, you're crushing it, you're this. And, what was that moment? And for the last year, I have been working on myself.
Yeah.
I made some very hard decisions. It's no secret. Obviously, I've gone on a weight loss journey. I stopped drinking. I have a therapist. I have like 3 coaches. And I look forward to those hard conversations. I look forward to learning more about myself. One of the things that and last year we had a tremendous year and accomplishments on paper when it came to business. But what I'm most proud of is the self-discovery journey that I embarked on, learning that I had willpower, that I had this courage and this strength in me to look inward and face some of these, I would say, egoic challenges that I had, or, face some of the trauma that I had faced in the past that I was too I was afraid to face. I'll be honest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I embarked on that journey, everything else just fell into place. I believed anything was possible. I was my biggest cheerleader. I started saying, patting myself on the back and saying, yes, you're doing this, but you're doing it for the right reasons. Only do things that align with what you represent, living with an integrity. And I realized for a long time, I was doing things that were so out of alignment, so out of alignment. And that's why I wouldn't have traction. I wouldn't really feel like I was accomplishing much in life because, and even though on paper, maybe it looked like I had accomplished a lot more than what I would give myself credit to, but like, it just didn't feel right. And then once I started working on myself, growing myself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, everything started to fall into place. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I sell a lot of real estate, or I'm growing a
Well,
team.
and that's exactly it. Like the real estate, you know, whatever, it's just real estate. You can always do more real estate. You can always make more real estate. But growing yourself is growing your everything. It's growing the people around you. It's growing. So, we've been socially indoctrinated to say that being selfish is a bad thing. You're like the most selfish person I know, which is incredible, right? We all should want to be selfish because when you give back, that is the most selfish thing you can do. And it's amazing. Because it makes you feel good, right?
Yes.
It makes you feel good when you give back. So being selfish is amazing. If you're not being selfish, what you're doing is you're giving a heart. See, it made you feel uncomfortable when I said you were selfish.
Yeah.
But it's actually
we're wired to believe that's
because we're wired to believe that it's bad. Yep. But it's not. If you're not being selfish, you're giving a half-assed version of yourself to everybody around you. So without being selfish, without the self-care, without giving back, without all of those things, there's no growth. So yeah.
When you decide to start growing yourself like this, it's not a secret that you will repel certain people, that certain people will no longer recognize you. Mm-hmm. They will not be comfortable with your growth. How did you navigate through that and deal with that, if you had to?
So it was more a matter of me protecting my energy. For me, it doesn't matter what other people think. That's their problem. Whenever somebody's angry, whenever somebody has an issue, that's something going on in their mind. It's nothing to do with me. I can't affect the way that you feel. Only you can affect the way that you feel, right? So if you're triggered by my growth, you might want to look at that.
Yes. It's so funny. We were talking about this yesterday. So I did an event yesterday. It was kind of like a low-key version event. I was doing a panel, and I was talking about that same very thing. I said, there are people in here who either love me or can't stand me. And I'm okay with that because I've learned that that's a reflection of them.
Correct.
You have to deal with why either they are not okay with what they know about me.
How they feel about you is none of your business.
Exactly. They don't really know me. And it's so funny that I heard that this girl said in the bathroom, I can't stand Veronica. And she said it to someone that really loves me. And they're like, I didn't know her. And I just heard her pour her heart out there. She was like, I kind of realized that I didn't know Veronica to judge Veronica. And that's okay. And I have the maturity of knowing like that before would have triggered me like, what's her name? Who said, like now it's like, oh my gosh, like so it's interesting to know, like, I was the first one that wanted to fight because again, that was how I was wired. I was wired to fight, to
100%. Yeah.
To always be confrontational. And now I'm like, I just want to pray for their soul. Like I don't know.
Genuinely, it's really something that, when you go through a growth journey, many things just start affecting you emotionally because you recognize, I'm going to use the word awareness again. You have an awareness of you're looking down at what's going on instead of being engulfed in the drama, right? Because the drama is something that we create in our own minds. Like two different people have different perceptions of what's happening. And I think that's what's really important about having an open mind and seeing things from many different perspectives. There's no right or wrong way to think anything. It's how you've been programmed. And those are the things that, that's why I don't get involved in this side and that side and this, like, it's just not, it, because it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, I feel like we can talk about this forever and ever and ever.
We will, because the journey continues
Yes.
forever.
Yes. And,
When
you know,
you open that Pandora's box, game over. There's
hey,
no
real
going
quick,
back.
I want to talk a little bit about something else that you've launched as we wrap up.
Okay.
Try to keep this to about 25 to 30 minutes. Is luxury real estate is really important, something you're passionate about. You recently obviously just joined, changed companies. You joined EXP, and you are on a mission to elevate the luxury brand within the company. You've already partnered with other agents at the company who came from different companies, whether it's Sotheby's, Remax, Keller, Independent, and you guys formed EXP Luxury mastermind, and it's really already growing and evolving. What is your biggest goal for this mission and the mindset behind luxury at EXP?
Well, I think, we are so blessed because we have so many different luxury agents who have recently moved over from these massive luxury companies. And so my goal is to just have everyone pick everyone's brain. Like, what did they gain from all of these different companies? What does luxury mean to you? Have this huge network of people who are sending referrals to each other, because we know that the way that we're going to treat our clients is top level, and just completely elevate the luxury brand at EXP. I think we need to give it more of a voice, and people are going to see what's going to happen. It's pretty powerful. The conversation that we're already having is really powerful conversations about luxury.
I love it. And of course, we're super brand agnostic. We have friends from all over and we welcome everyone, but this is particularly this group. And what I love the most about it is when Nikki decides to grow a page, it's like pouring gasoline on something. Grown pages to 20,000 people in less than a matter of 2 weeks. So whenever she, decides to do something, it's fun to watch. So I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited about not only your luxury masterclasses, but your Facebook masterclasses that you are a specialist in. If you guys have not yet followed Nikki, please follow her Curly Bit on IG, right?
Yeah, which I need to get better at that part of it.
And she's a master Facebook grower. So make sure you follow her. If you're maxed out on friends, which you probably are, Nikki, they can always follow you, right? What is your favorite, just real quick, hot seat question, your favorite Facebook group that real estate agents should be a part of?
My favorite Facebook group, I have to say Lab Coat Agents.
Okay, Lab Coat Agents, which you have helped grow that page as well and pour into that community. There you guys have it. We try to keep Fire Fridays to a short, sweet 30-minute segment. And today did not disappoint. You got to hear from Nikki, someone who's very, very special to me. Follow her, reach out to her. She's absolutely amazing. Thank you, Nikki. We love you. Until the next Fire Friday, we'll see you soon. Thank you guys for tuning in.